Alrighty then, back again for another edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast. This will be your Saturday edition, November number 2. We are into the month of November. I want to apologize for I missed the Halloween night, or actually the Friday slate. That was a big 11-game slate. That was my fault. But I hung out with my kids, had a good time. Today, back to good, feeling great. I felt like I was coming down with the little bit like flu-like symptoms last night. So I literally came home from work, ate, took some ibuprofen, took about 2 gulps of NyQuil, and I slept for about 14 hours. So feeling good, feeling refreshed. Already had a cup of coffee this morning, already done my research. I'm ready to do this pod. I'm also on the playbook over at Fantasy Alarm. Feel like I got a really good grasp on this slate. It will be interesting to see because I believe that there's a lot of teams on back-to-backs here. A lot of teams that are playing, their third game in 4 nights. So there's going to be a lot of things that you want to monitor. You want to see if these players are going to be playing. A lot of this load management talk. So you want to watch out tonight. But for the most part, you've got to play some guys, obviously, and just kind of risk it for the biscuit. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Of course, we'll start with the games, the totals, the spread, talk about it. And then we'll go right on into the position by position. So game numero 1, we have the Nets going to the Pistons, who are both on a back-to-back here. The Nets just were in a track meet last night with the Houston Rockets. The Pistons played the Bulls. In this one, we have Brooklyn as a 2-point road favorite with a total of 224. Obviously really like this game. It's a pretty high total, and the spread is fairly close, meaning that they don't think that obviously either team's going to blow them out. And this is really one of the games that I would like to monitor as far as the load management goes. We have Kyrie on that side of the ball, and then, of course, on the Pistons side of the ball, you have Andre Drummond, who, like I said, the Pistons are actually playing their third game in 4 nights. Drummond has actually put up 20-plus rebound performances in his last 2 games, but he's also played a boatload of minutes. So that's going to be something to monitor. Obviously, there could be some value open up in case they decide to, whatever. It is NBA, and you're going to have these situations, but it's just something you just got to kind of watch. The Nuggets at the Magic. You have Denver -4 here with a 201 total. First total that I've seen on the NBA for this regular season so far, where the total is right around 200 points. You have 2 teams here who are just snail pace. The Nuggets are like basically dead to second to dead last in pace, and the Magic are not much better. We saw the Magic, who were on a back-to-back. They played Toronto last night. So that's something to watch for. Obviously, you have a small road favorite here for the Nuggets, -4. Raptors at the Bucks. We have the Bucks playing on a back-to-back, and they're traveling back home. This is a big Eastern Conference matchup here with the Raptors. Milwaukee -5 with a 225 total, which is second highest on the board so far, or not so far, but for the board overall. After that, we have the Wolves going to Washington to play the Wizards with the highest total. Washington -2.5 here at home with a 226 total. Really like this game. We know the Wolves have been playing with a lot more pace, a lot quicker. They are without Karl Anthony Towns, so that is very, very interesting. And it actually makes me like one of the plays quite a bit more. I think he's a fairly cheap guy. I don't think a whole lot of people are going to go to him, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. Again, Suns at the Grizzlies. This one's another one that should be a really high paced. Both teams rank in the top 10 in pace. The Grizzlies are, first or second in terms of pace. So that one's one we're definitely going to be looking at to target. Love the game stacks there. Hornets at the Warriors. I'm sorry, I didn't read the Phoenix is -2.5 on the road here in Memphis, and the total is 221. Hornets at the Warriors. Charlotte -2. Boy, how the Warriors have fallen. They're actually a home dog here to the Charlotte Hornets. 224 on that total. Really like that game as well. Like a few pieces in it. 76ers at the Blazers in your nightcap, and that is Portland -1.5 at home with a 220 total. Who also, Philadelphia will be without Joel Embiid due to him and Karl Anthony Towns' fight the other night. 2-game suspension for both. So that opens up some value there as well for the Sixers. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Point guard, Kyrie at 9.3K on DraftKings. Of course, this is a back-to-back, but at the same time, they're playing the Pistons, who cannot guard a single point guard, even if it was a fifth grader playing intramurals. So Kyrie, 34.3% usage rate on the season so far. He's just totally smashing it. It's hard to fade him tonight, but again, of course, it is a back-to-back. Hopefully we'll get some kind of clarification. D'Angelo Russell at 8.9, started at point guard last night, put up 30 real points versus whoever came to town last night for them. And then he also had a 39.9% usage rate last night, which was absolutely crazy. Oh, they played the Spurs. That's right. They gave up 127 points to the Spurs last night on a back-to-back for the Spurs, which is insanely bad. So there's probably why they're a home dog tonight to the Charlotte Hornets. So D'Angelo Russell obviously will be in play. He's a younger guy. I'm sure he'll be rolled out there for another 30-plus minute effort tonight. So D'Angelo Russell at 8.9, totally fine with. Terry Rozier obviously is one that I really like, because for the simple fact that Golden State doesn't play defense as well, and for the simple fact that D'Angelo Russell has a 128.4 defensive rating. He really sucks at defense. So Terry Rozier at 6.9, he just put up 46.8 against Sacramento. He has a 23.6% usage rate. And, of course, he's playing Golden State and D'Angelo Russell with that terrible defensive rating. So Terry Rozier will absolutely be one player that I will be playing tonight. Going down, Ricky Rubio, 17.8% usage rate, 36.5 assist percentage, and 10.0 total rebound percentage. Rubio kind of gets it done a little bit across the board. He's 6.5K tonight going into Memphis. Obviously, this game has lots of game stacking potential. Rubio obviously should be in those game stacks, but actually the guy that I want is, of course, going to be in the shooting guard list, and that's Devin Booker, who is also going to be my roster monster tonight. I know it's kind of square. I know it's kind of I don't really care. I just think that he has 50-point upside in this matchup, and I don't think there's anybody on Memphis that can guard him. So with Booker being only 8.3K, Bill being 9.7, I think I'll pivot to Booker because I think a lot of people are going to obviously go to Brad Bill, which I don't hate. He's in a great matchup with Minnesota. So either way, but again, for me, it'll be Booker. So Rubio at 6.5K, I'm totally fine with, especially in those game stacks. The one guy I was talking about for the Minnesota Timberwolves is going to be Jeff Teague at 5.9. Really like his price tonight. I thought it was funny. I wanted to, I say funny, I thought it was interesting. I wanted to kind of do a little bit more deep dive. I used Court IQ from Roto Grinders, the free version. You can go in there and you can analyze and see what players get bumps in usage, fantasy points, and real points even, without people on the floor. So I wanted to see how Jeff Teague did, or just the whole team in general did without Karl Anthony Towns on the floor. Funnily enough, Jeff Teague was one of the highest rate, usage rate and fantasy point and real point bumps that the whole team got. So what I found was, he gets a 5.9% bump in usage without Karl Anthony Towns on the floor, which also translate into, that was for last year, plus 5.9% bump last year, which I wanted to compare and see. Now, I know they haven't played a whole lot without Karl Anthony Towns on the floor this year, but it was actually really interesting to see that he gets a 9.5% bump this season without Karl Anthony Towns on the floor. That also translated into 12.18 more fantasy points per game, or per 36, I should say, is what I was looking at, without Karl Anthony Towns this season on the floor, and that also translated into a bump of 16.18 real points. So that's pretty crazy. Really like Jeff Teague at his price tonight. Ish Smith is, the starter for Washington. He has a 117.1 defensive rating. So, hey, I'm totally fine with Jeff Teague tonight. He will probably definitely go unowned, and I think that he's in a great spot. So Devontae Graham at 5.8, 31.3 and 36.3 in his last two, over 31 fantasy points in 4 of his 5. Of course, he's getting that soft Golden State defense tonight, and they just allowed 127 points to the Spurs. Again, Devontae Graham has picked it up. He's getting fine usage. Of course, I like him and Rozier tonight. He's still playing around 30 minutes. Rozier's getting, 34 to 35 minutes. So Devontae Graham at 5'8", obviously I'm totally fine with that as well. Going back to the well tonight with Spencer Dinwiddie, he let us all down last night against the Rockets. I think this is one of those buyback spots. He's 5.5K. The Nets are playing Pistons again, and they can't guard a point guard. So, again, Dinwiddie at 5.5 will absolutely be in my lineups tonight. IT3, Isaiah Thomas at 4.8K, 27.7% usage rate in his first two games, 136.2 offensive rating in those two games, 28.3 and 36.5 fantasy points. And he went from 20 minutes to 24 minutes in the last 20 minutes to 24 minutes in their last game. So I'm hoping that he gets to see a few more minutes this game. Obviously, it's going to be a great spot. He's probably going to get the backup of the Wolves, which would be Shabazz Napier. I'm not too awfully worried, especially with how he's been doing for his first two games. If he gets 25, 26, 27 minutes at 4.8K, absolutely love it. So, and then on the flip side, I have Napier down here at 3.8. 20-plus minutes in all his games, 23.3% usage without KAT on the floor. He gets a bump of 2.9% there in usage without him. So, needless to say, it's not great, but he is down there at 3.8, and he probably should see decent, over 20 minutes. So, with that being said, that is what rounds out the point guard. Let's roll over to the shooting guard. Of course, like I said, you have Brad Beal at 9.7. I'm totally fine with Brad Beal at 9.7. He's going to continue to, get all the shots for the Wizards, basically. So at 9.7, if you feel like paying for that, I'm totally fine with it. Booker, like I said, is going to be my roster monster or not. He's 8.3K. He's getting that fast-paced game with Memphis. 27.9% usage, 42.5 in three, 42.5 fantasy points or more in 3 of his 5 games so far this year. I really think that he has 50-point upside tonight. So that's why I'm giving him the roster monster spot. I just really like the spot. I know that Memphis has trouble, with guards, and especially good guards. So Rubio actually, I think, helps him a little bit being in there, playing off the ball a little bit more. So Booker is my favorite play. Andrew Wiggins at 7.1. I thought it was another part of the dive that I did on Minnesota. He's 7.1K, which is not exactly favorable price, but he has put up over 30.5 fantasy points in his last 3 or 4. He's seeing a 5.7% bump in usage without Karl Anthony Towns, which translates into plus 8.5 or plus 8.85 fantasy points whenever he is off the floor as well. So Wiggins obviously gets a little bit of a bump as well. We already know he's going to take a gazillion shots because he just shoots all the time. So Wiggins, I think, is in play as well at 7.1. I don't love the price, but I think you kind of got to respect it. CJ McCollum at 6.7. His price went up $100. Again, I'm going to keep going back to CJ McCollum. I've said this on Twitter. He was my roster monster the pod before. And I love him again tonight. He had 29.5% in his game before last, 34.4% usage in his last game. He's taken 22, 22, and 26 field goal attempts in his last 3 games. And he gets the Sixers at home tonight. It looks like Josh Richardson could potentially not play. He had a toe issue over. I think he didn't practice Thursday. I'm not sure about Friday, but I know he's got an issue with the toe. So if he's even slow at all, I'll definitely be looking at C.J. McCollum. He will be in my lineups. I am going to play him again. They're back at home, so I believe McCollum, again, has 40-point upside. So C.J. McCollum absolutely in play. Karis LeVert at 6.1. If Kyrie happens to get managed in some form or fashion, put up 36 fantasy points last night against the Rockets. Now he's put up 36 or more in 3 of his last 4. Karis LeVert, totally fine with. Jordan Poole, 29 minutes last night, put up 20 real points, only 1 assist other than the real points, so he didn't really do too awful much other than just score. He was 7 of 13 from the field and 4 of 7 from 3, so I probably wouldn't expect him to continue shooting, over 50%. That's probably not going to happen, but he is cheap, and he is going to play a lot of minutes for Golden State. So Matisse Thybulle for Philadelphia, 3.7K. He's probably going to get more in the low 20 minutes, but he's also put up 23.3, 25.8 in his last two. Obviously, no Embiid. They're going to need some more defensive force there. So Thibault, I'm going to say we'll probably see a few more minutes. 3.7, you gotta kind of look at that one too. So moving on to the small forward, we have Giannis at 10.7. They are facing Toronto at home. This is obviously, like I said, a big matchup for them. Being as this could be one of those Eastern Conference playoff type deals. So Giannis at 10.7, he really hasn't hit value. I mean, he's barely hit value the last two games, putting up 50 and 58. It's really hard to think that he'll be able to do it against Toronto, who's a really good defensive team as well. So at 10.7, it's probably going to be it's going to be a fade for me. I'm probably not going to play Giannis. I just don't think I can play that. I would much rather play Kyrie at 9.3 or Drummond, Booker. Like I said, I think there's a lot of other, little lower price guys that I could play that I can fit some other value in with and not play Giannis. So that's probably where I'm going to go. Tobias Harris at 7.3. Totally fine with him. Obviously, he's going to probably get a bump in usage as well with no Embiid. He did last game. He saw the highest bump, and he actually took well advantage of it, but they are playing on the road, and they're playing in Portland. Tobias Harris, 7.3, I'm totally fine with. Robert Covington at 5.4. Obviously, like I said, no KAT. This opens up a little bit more room. Rob Cove hasn't played enough with him to get a full, analyzation as far as usage goes, but we know that he's got upside. I really like that game again for a game stack. So him at 5.4, I'm totally fine with. I think it's really fair price. Jay Crowder at 5.2 has put up 28.8 and 29.8 in his last two home games. They are playing at home tonight, and they get Phoenix. Phoenix is nothing really to worry about, although they have been playing really good this year so far. Either way, really like that game, and obviously if you're going to game stack it, I think Crowder is one of those you have to have. Like I said, 28 or more fantasy points in his last two at home, only two home games they've played, so seems like he's playing a little bit better at home so far. Taurean Prince at 5.1. Obviously, he had a huge night last night, 51.5 points versus Houston. It seems like they kind of just let him go. I think he took 17 field goal attempts. He took over the game for them. Hopefully that's a sign of some confidence or something. And then, at 5.1K, I'm probably going to roster him again. Obviously, it's a fair matchup with Detroit, so sure. Dario Saric, 4.8, 45.3 in his last game versus Golden State. He's one of those guys that has really good upside because he rebounds well. He can dish a few assists. He's a big guy, so he can get blocks. He gets a steal or two, and he can score. He can shoot threes, and he can score. So Dario Saric at 4.8, being in that game stack with Memphis and Phoenix, totally fine with. He put up 45 fantasy points last game against Golden State. So, hey, he's there. Mario Hezonja at 3.6. Still knows Zach Collins. Anthony Tolliver is the one who's actually benefiting more for that because he's actually seeing 20-plus minutes, and he's actually put up over 20 fantasy points in his last two games. So Anthony Tolliver is one guy that's in my power forward list. But Mario Hezonja, like I said, he's 3.6K. He's getting 20-ish minutes, so he's there. James Ennis at 3.3K, 19 minutes in their last game whenever Embiid went out, 24.3 fantasy points, gets a 2.3% bump in usage, which makes him sit at right around 19.9% usage rate whenever Embiid's off the floor. He's 3.3K, and he's probably going to get minutes, especially if Josh Richardson happens to not play for whatever reason, or if he's limited. James Ennis at 3.3 is probably a cash game lock. So, needless to say, that'd be one you want to keep on your radar. I got Korkmaz here as well at 3.1. It seems like he actually picked up quite a few minutes last game. Played 22 minutes, put up 21.5 fantasy points. It was actually quite weird because he actually picks up the biggest usage bump for this season without Embiid. I think it was 5.7% usage bump. So Korkmaz at 3.1, hey, I think it's totally fine, especially in tournaments. Kyle Anderson at 3.6. In his two home games, he played 20 and 24 minutes. He put up 27.3, 27.5 fantasy points. If Brandon Clark happens to sit again, I mean, again, if he happens to sit for whatever, he's got back pain and some other things going on, he's questionable going into tonight with Phoenix. If for some reason he happens to sit, Kyle Anderson at 3.6 I think is going to be totally fine. He's playing a little bit of center. He's playing a little bit of small forward. He's playing a little bit of power forward. So they're using him kind of as a utility guy, and it's Phoenix. Plus, like I said, it's a high total, fast-paced game. And it shows that he's put up some pretty decent numbers in their only two home games. So 27.3, 27.5 fantasy points in those two games. So Kyle Anderson at home, totally fine with. That rounds out the small forward spot, moving over power forward. Pascal Siakam, 8.5K, 32.2% usage so far in the season. Three of his 5 games have gone for 46 or more fantasy points. Gets a little bit of a pace-up spot here with the Bucks. I know he's going to be more worried, obviously going to have to put up with Giannis. But at 8.5K, I think that's a fair price. So I'm totally fine with that. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 6.9 versus Phoenix at home. Last game at home, he put up 43.8 fantasy points. So totally fine with Jaren Jackson. PJ Washington at playing with Golden State, playing against Golden State at Golden State. 38.5 fantasy points last game. He's played over 29 minutes in all of his games. So, I'm totally fine with P.J. Washington. He's been playing really well so far this season. I think he's got a fair price, right around 6.9K, I think. Hashimura for Washington at 6.2, 35 or more minutes in his last 3, 30.3 and 33.5 fantasy points in his last 2. The Wizards getting that, I like the total in that game. I like the pace. It should be a nice paced up-tempo game. So I think Hashimura at 6.2 is totally fine there. Serge Ibaka at 5.7 I'm fine with. Davis Bertans at 4.1 has played over 27 minutes or so in all games, 30.8 and 31.5 fantasy points in his last 2. He was major chalk last game, and I didn't want to play him, and then he puts up 31.5 fantasy points. So Davis Bertans, again, is there as well in Washington. A few guys that I wanted to talk about being cheaper ones, like I said, Anthony Tolliver. He played 26 and 29 minutes in his last 2. He put up 20.8 and 24.5 fantasy points. He's getting the start for Zach Collins, playing the 4 for Portland. He will have to deal with Tobias Harris more likely than not, which isn't the greatest thing. But if he's going to play 26 and 29 minutes and be, 3.6K, I don't, he's there. Anthony Tolliver is a fine play, especially in tournaments. Christian Wood, if for some reason Drummond happens to get a little managed and we get word of that, Christian Wood at 3.6 is a fantasy point per minute monster. If he happens to get 20-plus minutes, he can really do some damage. Obviously, he's playing against Brooklyn, who we love to target against with bigs. So Christian Wood is one you definitely want to look at 3.6K. Al-Farouq Aminu, one that I kind of did a little research in, not too awful much, but he's at 3.7K. He's put up 23 and 29.8 in 2 of his last 3. He's probably going to see an ample amount of minutes, and he's got decent upside, I think, because he does a little bit of everything. He rebounds, he steals, he's a really good defensive player. It's not exactly great who they're matched up with here, being the total being so low, but they're playing Denver, who I think he can actually see a little bit of success against, especially in that second unit. Denver has literally not been good against bigs. They've given up some really big games. I know if you've been listening to the pod, I've said that already a couple times and a few other ones. So Al-Farouq Aminu, I think, is totally fine in tournaments as well. And that's what will round out the power forward. Not too many in the center. Drummond, 10.1. Like I said, 20-plus rebounds in his last 2. It is a back-to-back. He is playing his third game of 4 nights. One that I really like, obviously, is Thomas Bryant at 7.2, 46.5 or more in his last 2 of 3. He's playing at home. He's getting the kick. The Karl Anthony Towns lives in Minnesota. They might be rolling out Jake Layman or, Noah Vonleh. I'm not really sure who they're going to play there. But either way, Thomas Bryant at 7.2 is totally in play. Cody Zeller at 6.4. He's getting tons of minutes. He's put up over 32.5 fantasy points in all of his games. I'm not too worried. Willie Cauley-Stein's still kind of getting managed while he works his way back into game shape. So Cody Zeller, I think, is a great play at 6.4. One dumpster dive kind of value play you might want to look at is Kim Birch at 3.1 for the Magic. He played 23 minutes last night. We know Mohamed Bamba is still out. Looks like he's going to be the backup for Vucevic. So Kim Birch at 3.1, if you want to go there, I'm totally fine with. All right, so that rounds out this edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS pod, as of course brought to you by the good guys over at Fantasy Degens on Twitter, or of course you can always find me at smitchell17 on Twitter. If you enjoy what I do and whatever, let's talk, let's chat. If you want to join the SD Slack chat, Fantasy Degens Slack chat we have for free, just let us know. DM us on Twitter or, whatever, tweet us. We'd love to get you in. We talk, all sports essentially. So you can do that if you'd like to. Anyways, other than that, enjoy your Saturday, and that's it.